With larger sensor cameras comes the ability to get much shallower depth of field. But with that, there's also the danger of overusing it, or the danger of using shallow depth of field ineffectively. Here we're going to talk about how we can use depth of field to actually propel our story, and to use it to make our story stronger. One of the biggest dangers of a shallow depth of field is the rack focus. It can be so easy to start changing our focus from one object to another, but we have to make sure that that's properly motivated. Why are we taking the viewer from one subject or object to another in the frame? We can use this to foreshadow, to offer insight, to change perspectives, but if we're just doing it because we have the ability to, it's not furthering our story. So here we're going to show you an example where we rack focus from somebody typing on a laptop to the background. There's no relevant information in the background, so this rack focus is really not doing anything for our story. Now in the second example, we're going to rack focus from him to his hands typing. Here what we're trying to suggest is that he's really working away fast. And by rack focusing to his hands, we're making it very apparent to the viewer they have to focus on how quickly his hands are moving. In having the ability to have super shallow depth of field, we also need to be able to restrain ourselves and not overdo it. Not open our lens up too much that we can't actually hold our subject in focus throughout the duration of a scene. If that's an event, that becomes even tougher because we often don't know where they're going to go. So don't be afraid to stop your lens down to 2.8 or f4 to be able to hold them in focus throughout the scene. Remember that everything needs to serve the story. So if they're coming in and out of focus, that can be used effectively to suggest an altered state. But otherwise, if that's not what you're trying to suggest, if you don't have a reason behind it, it can easily be a distraction that's going to take you out of the story. So let's take a super simple scene of somebody bringing home a surprise for their partner, and we're going to run through it 3 different times, using our depth of field to say something differently each time. So in the first example, we're going to shoot at 1.2, super shallow depth of field. And we're going to hold focus on the talent in the foreground. So when somebody enters from behind and says that they have a surprise, we don't know who it is, and we don't know what it is that they're bringing. We only find that out when they come closer and hand the surprise over.
Honey, I'm home. I got something for you.
Ah, what is it?
It's a cupcake for my sweetheart.
You are the best.
I know.
What flavor is this?
In the second example, we're going to stop down our lens a little bit, shoot at 1.8. And now when somebody comes from behind, we're going to rack focus to them and rack focus back. Now what happens is when we rack focus, we change our attention to the second character. Now that reveals what the surprise is right away, but what it does by rack focusing is hides the reaction that our first character has, and we don't see that until we rack focus to them at the end of the shot.
Honey, I'm home. I got something for you.
Ah, what is it?
It's a cupcake for my sweetheart.
Ah, you're the best.
Oh, thank you. Do you like it?
I hope so.
In this last example, we're going to stop down to f8. So when she comes from behind with a surprise, we see both what she brought as well as his reaction, and we're not hiding anything from the audience. The key here is to realize that through depth of field, we said 3 completely different things in each scenario, and it's up to you to choose. What do you want to say?
Honey, I'm home. I got something for you.
Ah, what is it?
It's a cupcake for my sweetheart.
Yum. Capital Y-U-M.
Just like
I
any
bet you like
filmmaking tool, we have to make sure we're using it effectively. Just because we have a Steadicam doesn't mean we should be shooting with it for every single shot. Likewise, just because we're now able to have a super shallow depth of field doesn't mean that it makes sense or is propelling our story if we use it for every single shot.